let's let's start with a little bit on your background as a child. Again, you were born in Germany. Tell me about that.
I was born in Germany in 1918 in April, and the war was still going on in First World War. And don't forget, this is the First World War. I'm old. And my father was an officer in the German army, and he was away when I was born. And that starts my family history. But I want to tell you about who their parents were.
So you want to talk about their parents, your
Well,
grandparents?
yes, because I want my children to know what their heritage is, if there is such a thing as heritage or background, where they come from. A lot of people here in my retirement home are spending a lot of time trying to dig up who their ancestors were. They're particularly keen on what country they came from, what they did, but they only do that when they get old. So I thought I'd put it down so my children don't have to go through if they ever want to know it. If they do want to know it, fine. If they don't want to know it, throw the whole thing away. It's just my way of telling where they come from. My mother was born in Würzburg, and her father and mother lived in what they call a family compound, which is outside of town, which has the houses of each of the family members that were given by the patriarch. It's sort of one big courtyard, which is very unusual. They don't do that anymore. You don't call it a farm because it wasn't. They raised horses. Those days, horses were necessary for everything. For the army, for the transportation, for everything. Okay. My grandfather was one of the people in the family who horses and went to market to sell them.
So that his job.
His job was part of the family. They raised the horses. Oh, it's one whole family thing, big family thing. There are about 4 or 5 boys in that family. And he went to market on the train, because it was in some town near in Bavaria. And he sold some horses, and on the way back, he was going on a train, and he had the money from the sale of the horses. And then some men came, took the money, and killed him. So he died on the train.
So he was robbed.
He was robbed
for
and
the
killed
money of sale,
for the money of the sale
horses.
of the horses. I don't know how much. I don't know anything about it. It was a big thing, which made my grandmother a widow in this family compound. And she came from another family. So, in a sense, she was ostracized. She was no longer part of that family. Not meanly, but not well taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Because there was nobody to
support her. Yeah, it was a family boy.
and kind of help the whole compound as well. Everybody took part in the compound.
Yes, it was a family thing, and she didn't want to be there either. It was one of those mutual things. So she moved into the city, into the town of Würzburg itself, and there was a store, and the woman had a son who had gone with a whole bunch of American boys in 1880 to the United States because they were bored with life in a small town, and they wanted to be adventuresome. So they got together, I think 4 or 5, I don't know how many, and they came to the United States and came to New York. They didn't like New York. They were looking for work there, of course, in the horse trade, because that's what they learned. And then they went to Chicago, and they didn't like it there. And then somebody said, you go down to, not Arizona. Good Lord, see, I have one of these senior moments which are very embarrassing, and they happen a lot.
We get them as
Santa Fe, New
junior
Mexico.
moments as well.
Okay, I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And they had one of those, I have pictures of, and he was in America, and he raised horses with these boys, and at one point he wanted to go home and see his mother. His mother was widowed. And he went back to Germany to visit the mother, and the mother said, here's this beautiful girl, woman, and she has 2 children. She had my mother and a sister. And they fell in love, and my grandmother said, oh, I want to go to the United States. This is so wonderful. He said, no, you don't want to go to Santa Fe. We're outside of town. We live in a wagon. There is no opera. There is no cafe. There is no theater. It's nothing very elegant. And you can't wear your dresses and your jewelry, because she was one of these women who was well dressed and so on. He said, you can't come. But they got married in London, and they bought, this is an interesting story because it's very important to me and to my children as well, because when he came back with a lot of money, at that time German money wasn't worth anything. Am I on too long?
No.
But
no.
the point in this is really that he decided to buy some apartment houses, which were then for sale in the city of Würzburg. There were 1, 2, 3 houses behind one another, and then there was a field with gardens, just a big, huge garden. And in the front were roses, and in between were flowers. And he bought that. Then came inflation and depression. He lost all his money. He didn't lose the houses. So from then on, our theory in the family was always invest in real estate. I'm saying this because it's been a mantra. Invest in real estate, because if you lose your money, at least you got a place to live. So it was very important, and that's why I'm making this particular point.
Now, before we move on, I want to get a few of the names, because you've mentioned people as with just
Of their name.
pronouns, like your mother and your...
Bona.
So let's start with your grandfather. Or no, let's start with your grandmother.
Grandmother Bona Holder.
Borna Holder.
Yeah. And my grandfather was Friedlein, and I'm trying to think of what his first name was. Friedlein he is. The whole clan was Friedlein.
And this was the
The man who was killed, yes, the Friedlein. And what else did you want to know there? The names of the 2.
Yes.
Right.
And then...
And then my mother married my father. He came back from, there's another transgression, which is also interesting for another reason. The children, this new husband, the one who was in Santa Fe, was a very nice man. He had 2 girls and treated them like his daughters. And it's usually customary in Germany to send children abroad. They sent my mother to England after she was graduated from high school, which was private school, girls' school. And her sister went to France, to Lille. And my mother was sent to England and lived with a wonderful family who introduced her to the arts, to the music, to reading, to the theater, and she was very, very happy, because the life in Würzburg was nice, but it was elegant, it was well-lived, but it was boring, and she blossomed. So this is another heritage I have, is the interest in all these things came from my mother. And this is just like we send our children over abroad now, which is important to the Peace Corps and to all those things. It was important in Europe in those days, which is 1918, 20, and so on. You sent your children away. That's how I came to the United States later on. They came to the States. So this is a precedent that was set in Germany. In other countries as well, they exchanged. All right, now where are we? We're now with my mother's family, right?
Correct.
He met my
Unless you also want to talk about your father's grandparents.
Well, that's what I'm just about to start, because I don't know anything about them. I know only that his father died when he was very young, and he was sent to a school. Now, I think it was a Catholic school. That's why I think he may have been Catholic, and I really don't know. There was no religion in my family. And then I met his brother and his children. They're all Lutheran. So I said, well, maybe he was a Lutheran, maybe he was a Catholic. I don't know. Okay. That's also interesting, because there was no mention of it. So his father and mother died when he was very young. The father was a candy merchant. He made candies, and he made a special kind of candy which we called sofa pillows, like this, like a pillow. The inside was liquid and the outside was hard candy. He invented that, I guess, or at least we thought he did. And they lived in a very nice house in Boppard in Germany on the Rhine, a charming place. And the house is adorable. It's still there. It's in town. It's, but that's all I know about it. And I also know that the name Kremser, which was my name and my father's name, was a horse-drawn carriage. It's called a Kremser. And I had an uncle, a great uncle of my father's, who wrote Thanksgiving thing in the church, the hymn, which we call the Thanksgiving hymn. It's a history of the family, which is true or not true, I don't know. It's legend anyway. That's about him. He had brothers and sisters. 2 brothers died in the First World War with gas, that horrible gas, mustard gas. And the other one became a postmaster in Koblenz, Germany, and he had 3 children. His son is still doctor in Hamburg, who started a health clinic, the craze that we have today, eating only grass, as I call it. He started it.
And this is the family name of Kremser?
Kremser. My father's name was Rudolf Kremser. And my cousin Werner Kremser is still practicing medicine at 93 or 4 right now. Can't believe it, but he is.
It's very impressive.
Very impressive. And when my parents went there to stay and visit with him, they said, we never had anything to eat. So,
except grass.
Yes, but you see, this is also so interesting, because this is part of our family too. The buying of real estate and the eating of grass, and all these things are part of it. Okay, now let's pass from that to my childhood. It was a very happy childhood. We spent the summers in my grandmother's house in Würzburg. My parents dumped us there, which was great. We loved it. And then they went and had a vacation. They went to Italy. They went all over. And they picked us up in the end and took us home, which happened every year. So I have very fond memories of Würzburg.
What would you do in Würzburg?
Oh, play. Oh, goodness. We played with the kids. We walked everywhere. We went to the mine to swim. I learned how to ride a bicycle. It was so open. Everything was open. You came home, if you want something to eat, they give you something. They give you a sandwich with jam on it or something, It was a most carefree, most wonderful time. We had in the garden, we ate the vegetables. We pulled carrots right out of the earth and put it in this dirty water that was accumulated from the rainwater and washed it and ate it. We picked the fruit from the trees. There was a lawn. We did exercises. I mean, it was just a marvelous childhood. School we moved to Düsseldorf. We moved several times because of the war, the occupation of Germany. There were all kinds of bad times, and depression, inflation, and just everything. And we children didn't really notice it. We moved, but life was good. My parents were nice to each other, They had very much leisure. We went on trips. We enjoyed everything. We had a car before anybody else did, which made me very proud. We had a telephone, and a lot of my school friends didn't have it, which was very early. So yeah, I was sort of spoiled, and I enjoyed it. And then my sister was born. I was 7 years older, so she was no problem to me. She just died this year.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, she lives in Hilton Head, South Carolina, so her husband is still alive. Their children, well, anyway, I'm dwelling much too much on this very early childhood.
I don't think so. It was a fantastic time in your life, and I think that's a very...
Well, I tell you what's important at that period, especially in Würzburg, which it was a beautiful town, very much the Baroque style. The churches were full of angels and gold and everything else, and we went from one church to another as kids, just so beautiful. We had Catholic service. We weren't Catholic. I don't know what we were. We went to that. We went to downtown to the market and loved the marketplace, fresh vegetables and all that. And the architecture is just fantastic. A castle on top of the hill, a castle in town where the archbishop had this fantastic castle with 200 rooms and a tiepolo ceiling and a garden around it that's unbelievable. So I go to Filoli here and have such a wonderful feeling and time, because it also has a very nice stately house, but it's just a house, and this gorgeous garden. And it reminds me when I was a child of this beautiful garden with statuary and this gorgeous residence where the stairway going up is fantastic. And it just had a lot of beautiful architecture. And it had Riemenschneider, who was a sculptor in wood, and I still like there the figurines and things that are made out of wood, and that lasted my whole life. So my point I'm making here is that if children are surrounded by art and beautiful architecture and color and flowers and leisure. You have to have leisure to enjoy it. I don't think people nowadays have leisure enough for that. But you're surrounded by gorgeous statuary and beautiful laces and pretty things. It stays with you for the rest of your life.
So you clearly had a lot of things around you for stimulation as a young child.
Absolutely.
Which you clearly made an impact on you.
It did, and the travel too. You know, the family got in the car and we traveled. We went to France, we went to Belgium, we went, I don't know, just everywhere.
So you never had an opportunity to ever really become sedentary or lazy as a child? You had so
Well, I was lazy. Oh,
stimulation.
please, I was lazy. School didn't interest me whatever. I just looked out the window, was dreaming. But I don't know what I was dreaming about. I was a reader too. My mother was a very clever woman. She was very smart. She was much too smart for the life she was living. And she was reading constantly. And we had a bookcase. My father was in the furniture business. He was a manufacturer of furniture. And I went with him sometimes to pick out woods for the furniture. And also was there when they drew up furniture for construction, and very ornate. I mean, German heavy furniture. And so I also was enjoying interiors. It had to be good wood. It had to be beautiful. See, I surround myself with fairly good, well-made furniture. But it was a very creative period on his part. He was a lovely man. He used to tell wonderful jokes. Everybody just loved him. He was very funny, and he was very free. My mother was very erudite, very more quiet. She loved the theater, and she had theater people around her. We had a lot of actors and writers and people like that in the house. That was my mother's deal. That was her side. And she taught us, but funny, in a strange way, in Europe, you didn't take your children to the theater. You didn't take them to the opera. You talked about it, but you didn't do it. That's very strange. And now they take a child to anything, which I think is very good. So I'm just telling you, it was a rich childhood. I was a flighty person. I was no student at all, just none. Until I came to the United States. I mentioned that before in another context, that coming to the United States was for me an awakening. It was wonderful schooling. I had to go back to high school. My English wasn't good enough to get past the examination at university. So I had to go back to high school for a couple of years, and I loved it. Civics, education, they had wonderful subjects. The kids were walking around. We had all kinds of people. You had different colored kind of people. It was just so exciting. For our school, both my mother and I went to private girls' schools. So it was sort of limited. It's not interesting at all. We did learn music and a few things, but it wasn't very exciting. So where am I now? I'm in...
Well, I think we have covered your childhood and your grandparents, and we've touched a little bit about the backgrounds of your mother and father, and I think we can talk about them, if you like, a little bit more as they're being role models to you as a child and growing up, and what your parents did. You talked about your father being a furniture maker.
Well, we had factories. We had, it's funny, they have a factory for each item. They had a living room for a place, they had one for dining rooms, they had one for studies, because the studies were, very elaborate, with big wardrobes. And I was talking about the book one. We had one with books, and it had glass doors with a key. My mother said, the books on this side you can read. The books on this side I don't want you to read. And guess what? I went to the books I couldn't read. I read Tolstoy. I read Shakespeare. I read Lagerlöf of the North. I read Dostoevsky. I read Gorky. And when I was under 16 years old when I read all this. And now I think, how did I understand it? How come I read all this stuff? And I liked it. How come? What is there about this? I realized that it made me a social democrat. I became very socially conscious through the reading of all these books. At that time, there was a revolution in the world. And of course, the Russians were the ones that really talked about it. The French, Zola and so on, were talking about the misery of the poor. And and then Lagerlöf was talking about the North, and I know I read it all as before 16 because it was all in German. But my interest in books has never waned. I've been reading all my life. That's all I do is spend reading. Whether I understand it all, I don't know. I think some of it rubs off, and some of it I just completely forget. But I wonder how I did learn that when I was that young.
And why was it your mother didn't want you to read those books?
Because she knew I'd go and read them, psychologically.
So you think it was
Oh,
reverse
she did on
psychology
purpose.
on her part?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I read Les Histoires Drôlatiques by Balzac, which is a pornographic book. I mean, what did I get out of it? And my answer is that children only get out of it by osmosis or some funny way. They don't understand it, but they get something out of it. I can't figure what it is. So my interest in books came from my mother. My trying to be funny, which I'm trying sometimes to be, and not always with success, is a little bit like my father. He was also not terribly intellectual. He liked people, and I liked people. My mother was a little bit more standoffish, a little more quiet, a little more reticent, a little more absent. She was a wonderful grandmother. She came to the States. I brought them over here. And she made a wonderful grandmother when I was going on these trips. Now I don't talk about my children and my life because this is background, but I want to say that I had two wonderful children. One daughter was difficult. We lived through the 60s. And it was unknown to me, it was unknown to all the people with whom I lived because the rebellion, the sexual revolution, the hippie thing was with us. My daughter was a hippie. My daughter did all kinds of awful things, and I didn't know how to deal with it. I had no idea what it was. It's terrible, terrible, terrible. I had the other daughter who saw all this, Sandy. She saw it, and she didn't do any of it. She was emancipated and all that, but she didn't partake in the upheaval that my older daughter did. She just sat by quietly, and she didn't get the attention that she should have had. She was a good, wonderful, wonderful child. So we figured we didn't have to do anything with her. She was just fine. It's the other one who causes problems. So it was a turmoil in the household, and I don't know how it affected everybody. I just don't know. It affected me and my husband very much. We were very unhappy about it. She was a brilliant girl.
And this is Bonnie.
Bonnie, brilliant. But she didn't know where to channel her intelligence. So she traveled around the world. She went to Florence to school. She went to private school. She lived in Switzerland. She lived in Italy. She went all over. And she was creative, but never carried it to any kind of extent, never carried it through. So she was a problem to us, and she was married, and she produced two wonderful children. Aaron, who is here in San Francisco, and Tara, who now lives in Florida. I wish she would move over here, but it's too expensive for her. They both married. They both have children, so I have two great-grandchildren. And they're wonderful children and grandchildren. I really was lucky, really lucky. And my daughter, Sandy, here, is the most devoted person in the world. She is just wonderful. I can't praise it enough. She's kind and good and creative, intelligent, she's lovely, and she's good looking. She's always eating grass, not getting fat. And she is lovely, just lovely. She makes a beautiful home. You've seen it. And she is a marvelous mother. She makes up for me, my being sort of half good mother. And she is a double good mother.
Well, you had to have done something right to have her turn out so well.
Well, I think, no, they do it themselves, really. I mean, you don't make it that way. You provide the childhood, don't you? I mean, in my case, you provide the things that are there. You don't teach them anything. You show by being. You can't teach a child. You can only show a child by your own actions. If you're honest, the child will be honest. You know? If you're good, the child will pick it up. I really don't. I don't. Do you just think that children are malleable?
Well, I think you obviously can lend a certain amount of your own influence, but at some point the rest has to be up to the child, yes?
That's why I'm telling you why I think I read until I was 16. Because what I'm telling you are all the influences that influenced me. When I was 16, I was on my own. See, nobody could do that. So my feeling is, be a good example and guide your children till they're 16. But for heaven's sakes, don't leave them alone after that. They've got what you could give them. I think the best thing happened to me is leaving at 16. and coming to the United States by myself. I had to live it. And it was hard. It was very hard. And that's where you get strong. So my sister sent her son out when he was 16 and didn't want to go to college. She said, okay, you don't want to go to college? You go out on your own. And she threw him out. Now, I thought that was horrible. Well, he is doing very well. He's the head of an electronics company, and they're all over the Far East and everywhere, and she threw him out, and he became a hamburger fellow. Eventually went to college. You know, I thought it was cruel and terrible and awful, but look, he turned out okay. Because he was over 16. I think that's so. Maybe everybody thinks I'm crazy. I can only tell by my own experience. I'm digressing everywhere.
Well, no, I don't know that you're digressing at all, but I think that you just brought up something very interesting, and it reminds me of our previous conversation about opportunities that enter into your life, and part of life being luck and part of life being nerve, and here you have your sister's son is able to go from that situation and able to create something in his life. Who knows in what ways he had opportunities arise to help him get into that position, but it reminds me of your philosophy.
Yeah, through crisis comes action or something. Either you break, I don't know, you may break, I don't know that. I only know of people's success. That once they are thrown into some kind of crisis, war, my husband would have been a totally different person if he had been here as a professor at Berkeley, which he was going to be. Instead, war threw him into Europe, into most incredible situations. What do I do with that? Nothing. Anyway, so I think that those events, war, if you don't die and you don't have any kind of injury and you're not destitute, will in some way teach you lots of things that you can. Oh Lord, yeah, that's good. You get to war and you don't aren't injured or are mentally sound, because you have to be that. Then you can take off. You can really write your ticket. Of course, in the war, the Second World War, the thing for most people here was going back to school. Everybody went back to school. Not everybody, but a lot of people had the GI Bill of Rights. If the boys who were coming back from Iraq had that opportunity to go to college, the Bill of Rights would be amazing. You know, give people an opportunity. But you shouldn't have war to give you an opportunity. Yeah, my theory is that you should give everybody a free education, as much as you can. Weed them out. If they're no good, they have to do something else. I thought the European system of apprenticeship, if you don't make it here, you go to become an apprentice to something else. Fine. But free education. Not burden you as a young person with a lot of debt. Terrible. We didn't have debt when we started our life. In those days, GI Bills paid for things. My husband went to the California system. He said it didn't cost him much at Berkeley in those days. I mean, it's just unthinkable that you want doctors, and the doctor is so burdened with debt. Our whole health system is broken because of it. Think of thousands of people who want to be doctors. Don't have the opportunity. Nurses, need millions of nurses, don't have the opportunity. There's no school for them. It's incredible that we're doing. So these are the things that I find. But this has nothing to do with telling my children about their background. I'm so sorry.
It's quite okay because it's all part about the things that you feel about the world and social views, and it all goes to part about who you are and the things that you feel and think, and I think that's all important.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what's important anymore. I know I have a lot of grievances here. I just think it's a shame, but it's all over the world now. It isn't just here. I used to think of certain German social services being so wonderful because they were. Health insurance is perfect. I mean, you go anywhere. You know, it didn't cost a thing. Our education was not free. I think there's certain echelon. There is a pass. You had to pass a test. And my parents, when I was 10 years old, I had to go from what they call elementary school and take a test. And since being a bad pupil and not paying much attention, I was a little worried about that test. And my mother said, if you don't make that test, you just, in other words, it's the end of the world if you don't make that test. So can you imagine a 10-year-old going in there, taking a test and saying it's the end of your world? This is crazy,
A lot of pressure.
Oh, incredible. Did I even pass it? I'm surprised. I did pass it. So we go to private school. But the kids who don't, it's not bad. They go to, what do they call them?
Public school.
No, not public school, but they get trained, they get trained in different ways. Well, in the States, they do it when you go to high school. You either go to university or the business, right? Or they always separate that a little bit. I don't know how it is today. That was when I came here. But anyway, I think I want to leave with you that I have such great children and such wonderful grandchildren and this adorable little children who are my great-grandchildren, who are now inundated by stimulation. They are drowned in stimulation. They have to go to all these different schools. They have to do that. My 2-year-old it goes into all kinds of activities, swimming, exercise class, this class, that class. I mean, I can't believe it at 2 years old. I don't know what kind of people they're going to make. I don't know. Maybe they'll be hyper intelligent. They have to cope with the electronics world today, and I tell you, I can't cope with it. So it's going to be a different world, totally different world. I can't judge it because I don't know this world. I'm glad I'm leaving it. I really am, because it overwhelms me. I feel stupid. I can't work my computer. I practically can't put a number in my telephone where the number is redundant. I have to change it to know how to do that. I feel so stupid. So this society makes me feel so stupid.
Well, it's just that things have changed so quickly, so recently, versus the things that you knew for so long. And it's not a question of that. It's just a question of what the people who are growing up in today's society see all the time.
I'd like to see, 100 years from now, I wouldn't know a thing what happened here if I saw it. You wouldn't know 100 years from now. I try to visualize it. So, well, how are they going to live? What are they going to be like? They're now talking about working on the brain, which is the latest thing, which I'm delighted about, because we were in biology too. My husband is in biology. The advances that have been made are tremendous. You're probably going to lick most diseases, and you're probably living to be 200 years old. And what are you going to do? Live in a retirement home like I do? You won't have the money to do that. So it frightens me.
I'll still be paying off my student loans.
I know everybody is. My grandson, I think, just now, as a as a husband with a child, has paid off his college. We didn't pay his college because both my daughters did not want to go to college. Bonnie never finished. She went to Bennington, which was the best school and girls' school in the United States. She quit after a while. A year and a half is all right. She went overseas. She studied. It was different. Didn't get a degree. Couldn't find anything to do as make a living because she was so well educated and had so many different things, and nothing channeled. She had a bookstore, so she was good at that, books. But what are they preparing them for? I don't know. The world is going to be so different. What kind of education will they have to have?
Let's talk a little bit more about Bonnie.
Yes.
So Bonnie had a bookstore. Let's talk about what how she fell into having the bookstore after being kind of the world traveler that you said she went through that whole period, and sort of very creative, couldn't really find a place to land creatively and whatnot. So
well, all right. So my husband was in Aspen, the Aspen Institute as president, and my daughter was there, and she started to work in the bookstore there while she was a hippie. And her future husband was a hippie with her in the bookstore. So they got married, and the two hippies getting married without knowing how to make a living. It was rough. So they went to, in Colorado, to Boulder, and worked they became Buddhists. That's the next thing, after hippie you become a Buddhist. Because Buddhism gives them some meaning in life. And I admire that. Whatever it is, if it gives you meaning, please do it. It's the first time they found meaning in life. And devoted their life to the Naropa Institute, which is a Buddhist institution. My daughter worked for the Buddhist store, did a wonderful job. She increased it, she got all kinds of accolades. That's the only time somebody really complimented her as being fabulous in what she's doing. And he was at Naropa Institute teaching. So they had a good life, they had 2 children, and he decided to be a philanderer. So she kicked him out, or they kicked each other out. She went with the Buddhists to Nova Scotia and took her children. The children never got over that separation. And he has married now 3 times and has about 5 different children and doesn't support any of them. So this was sort of somewhat the result of giving them all education, doing anything for them without asking them to control themselves to become something. We wanted to get away from that rigid notion that we had as children, that you've got to go to school, you've got to go to the university, you've got to do all this. We said none of that. Let's people be free. Well, that was the revolution. They became free, and those people became so free, never really settled onto anything. There's so many of them, so many of them. Intelligent, incredibly creative, and totally inadequate to live life. That's to my way of looking at it.
And you mentioned that Bonnie has since passed away.
She had lived in Nova Scotia with her children. Unfortunately, we had to support them, which was fine. I mean, she was a good mother, except she spent too much time with the Buddhists. The Buddhists were in the house all the time, It was sort of displacing something that she needed. And the children got a little bit of short thrift there and resented it. And they have, Aaron particularly, is pretty hurt by that. Unfortunately, you know, it's just, but Aaron is a wonderful person, very creative. He has her creativity. And he followed a little bit my husband's footstep in the nonprofit world. So there is something of that comes off the background to all children, I think. You know, your parents have an influence by osmosis, certainly. So all my children are philanthropists. It's sort of almost, as I'd say, in the blood.
Well, 60 years of marriage will certainly provide plenty of influence and example, and chip off the old block to your children. I mean, you were married for a very long time, and that had to leave quite an impression on you.
And a negative one, don't forget. And my children are compensating for that. The negative one is that my theory was, my husband first, because I told them once, which I shouldn't have done, that I was with him before you came, you're our gift, and you're going to leave us, and I'm going to be with him afterwards. So in other words, he's very important to me. And it was important to me to be with him because it also gave me substance I didn't have. I was his alter ego, I don't know. I was helping him in some way. And we were gone a lot, and I was very close to him. I thought I was a good mother. I loved my children. But they felt shortchanged somehow. Yet, I had help always. My mother was always there, babysitting or coming when I was gone, when we were gone. But they felt that very deeply, that we were not there for them, the way children today. So what happens? My daughters, my grandchildren, are over-mothers, Übermutter. They are just involved with their children 110%. They're making up for me. So strange. So, I mean, whatever you do, you can do for good or for bad, for ill. You don't know which way it goes.
But the 60 years of marriage were also very good.
Oh, for me it was, I mean, for both of us, my husband and I were extremely well suited to one another. Not that he didn't have his fault and I had my faults, absolutely. There's certain things he disliked about me and there's certain things I didn't like about him. So it's not, you know, it's good because you adjust and you let be, you know. He adored music. He had music from morning to night. And he could tell which composer and what his song. And we went to concerts constantly. And I have a deaf ear. I went to concerts because that's what he liked. And right now that I'm a widow, I don't go to concerts and I don't hear music very much. I got too much of that. What did he not like about me? He always thought I should be more elegant. I should be more, somehow, he compared me to certain fancy wives that were very specially, you know, whatever they were. And I wasn't. I was just ordinary. So he kept wanting me to be just a little bit more what I wasn't. And so we had our little things. I said, I'm sorry, that's the way I am. I try. I do my best. So marriage isn't 100%, but it's certainly 96%. That's good enough. And I see the people here who are still married, most of them here, strangely enough, are all married 50, 60 years. The people live here. And you see the two old ones going along with their canes and their hands in each other. And I'm jealous because that's what I would have liked. But I wasn't given that. He died. But it was a good marriage. And the other day, my son-in-law, my so-called son-in-law said, "Tell me, have you ever known a really happy person?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Who is it?" And I said, "I am." He couldn't believe it. You know, I had a good life, I had a good family, I have a wonderful retirement, I'm still healthy, knock on wood. I have nothing to complain about. So that's unusual.
Well, do you find that it's unusual because people complain maybe too much about things that they don't need to complain about, or that people really maybe do have things to complain about, or are they just not happy enough when they really should be?
Well, it's a lot of these things. Some of it, of course, is physical. If you're not well, I mean, forget it. I noticed that this is a bad thing to say. I always regretted that I never quite finished college. And this was a, chip that I had on my shoulder. And I'm here, and I hate to speak out of school here. I have met so many women, and they're all college graduates. Stanford, Berkeley, blah, blah, all of them. You sit down, and they're the most uninteresting people you've ever met. Why? They never continued. They never learned more. They played bridge, they played golf, they had big houses, and they could talk about those big houses and their big pools and their country club and all this. And I think to myself, fine, so they had it's their life. But to me, what did they do with all that education? There are a lot of, not everybody, please, there are fabulous people here. People are still active, people are still working. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a lot of people who go to university and then become fantastic mothers and do nothing else. I don't think that's a life well lived. I don't know. I didn't do anything else. I didn't work. But I lived through my husband. Maybe some of them live through their husbands, but if you're an accountant or you're a scientist of some esoteric thing, there isn't much you talk about at night. And so it isn't their fault, It's nothing else but their children. And they hang on their children. Of course, I hang on my children too, terribly. Oh, poor Sandy. Poor Sandy, poor grandchildren. And I'm a pest, yeah. But they'll miss me, just the same.
So, with that has somewhat led us into information that you may want to part onto your children, your grandchildren, conclusions or life lessons or anything like that. I mean, is there...
I can't, really. I can't, because their life is so different. Anything I say is said, oh yeah, in your life, in your time. Oh, this isn't like that. But life isn't like that today. Not at all. My grandchildren's life is very different. They both work. They all have to be working. The women are more equal to their men. Sometimes the women make more money than the men, or they're more this and that. It's such an unusual life that I think there are no lessons to be learned. I don't think. The only thing you can do as a grandmother is be there, and every time you mention something in the past, oh yeah, mother, you told me that before. Oh, I know that. Oh, I so and so. There's nothing I can tell them. Really, not really. just care for them and enjoy them and wish them the best, because the education my little grandchildren, 2-year-old is getting, is beyond me. They're learning the computer. They sit there, they're on the piano and already playing. It's all good. It's all wonderful. The life is there for them. I don't know how it's going to fall. I have no clue. None. All the divorces, everybody's getting divorced. Both my girls got divorced. How can I give them any information? There isn't any. Do what you like to do. Behave yourself.
Watch out for those open doors.
They do that. I mean, everybody in my family is watching open doors and doing well. Yeah, I think so. Bringing up their children madly. Smothering them. I can't tell them, please don't smother your children, just let them be. They don't want to hear that. And they won't do anything about it anyway. Wise old owl, don't do anything.
Well, I think that you've certainly imparted more lessons and more information than you may know, just through the stories that you've told and the life that you've lived and the examples that you've set. And it certainly has, it's been very apparent to me in our conversations that you've done an incredible job at doing that, whether you know that or not.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. It would be nice to believe it. No, it'd be nice to say that I've been here for something, because we're not really here for very much except procreation. And what?
Well, I from the stories that you've told and the things that I've seen, you've certainly created a lot.
Well, I created wonderful children and grandchildren. That's all I can say. And that's their own doing. I didn't do anything for them.
Well, I think the influence is far more reaching than.
Well, I would like to think that, but I don't take it. You know, I'm glad if it did. I'm pleased. And I say I was here for something. And I think that's what we're here for, is to see the next generation go on, but not smother it. And let them be good, honest people. And one thing I did learn from all my experiences, that there are good, wonderful people in every nationality, And I hate to see what we're doing, that hate that's spewed forth about either one country or another country, or one people or one religion or another religion. I've never seen anything like it. The fighting between religions, and what they're fighting for is supposed to be the same thing, and it just doesn't work. I mean, to me, this is bad. Religion doesn't work for a lot of people. I don't know for everybody. Some people need it, but it doesn't work. Love your neighbor? Oh, come on. You know, don't do this, do something else. Oh, come on. Adultery? Yeah, it's going on. I mean, I couldn't help that. It's in the Bible. But my kids lived through adultery. So, you know, do not steal. Well, it's a good idea. And yet, you make money and you do kinds of things that are dishonest. Elections are bought. I mean, all that money for what? For whom are you picking? I mean, I worry about that. I wonder, where are all those lessons that we're supposed to have through religion and through other ways? People aren't living by it. They're mouthing it.
Well, I think every generation has the opportunity to learn those lessons and hopefully improve upon the ones that they may have been taught from the previous generations. And And you have done quite a job at, by example at least, and by things like this video and talking about the things that you've taught and examples that you've led and information that hopefully you've been able to pass down, and these generations coming forth hopefully will be able to expound upon that. And
They'd have to do their own, you know.
Well, it's
Yeah.
part of it's always a building block.
Yeah,
they
sure
do
it
their
is.
own, but they're building it from the past, you know.
Yeah.
They only are able to do their own because they have something from the past.
Well,
that
it's
moves them
it's a
forward.
kind of rolling stone with grass. It gathers things and it it leaves things. I think I don't know, and I think that we are made of. I'm really amazed about human beings anyway. Human beings are incredible.
Well, you're certainly one of the most incredible human beings that I've ever met.
Oh, come on.
And thank you
Oh,
very, very.
oh no, Aaron!
Thank you very,
don't
very
do
much.
that to me.
Thank you very much.
You
for
devastate me.
taking the time to speak with me again.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you for doing this,
Of
Aaron.
course, of
Putting
course.
up with all these things. I'm digress and go here and there, but that's the way life is too. It's not one line. It's not.